technical SEO is by far the hardest for the operators. I think you should be abusing Google in any way you can. The connection between the main domain and the niche they ranked for was not there at all, but just Google recognized the authority and was ranking them for those keywords and topics. Most of the time, it's a political decision in lots of jurisdictions. And when it's not made with the right understanding, it's pushing players a lot more towards the black market. They would be well optimized, they would have a lot of redirect, a lot of PBNs, lots of CTR manipulation. Maybe it's not worth it to get the whole domain, blocked locally for, some highly searched for and highly valuable keyword, but for a rather short period of time. If you're working on a regulated market, you can go to an unregulated type of keywords, which I believe can work in the short term very well if you rank there. I've advised a lot of people not to go into it because it's going to be extremely hard. The same content shown in different contexts can lead to very different results. If you're doing anything SEO for iGaming in the UK, you have to choose, are you going to work with them or are you going to work with offshore brands?
Hello, everybody. Welcome back to Odys Podcast. My name is Aneta Semkov, and today I'm hosting Rado Georgiev. Welcome, Rado. Thank you for coming. I know you arrived recently and that was a long trip for you.
Yeah, first of all, thank you, Odys, for inviting me to be here today. And my trip to Vietnam had its twists and turns, which was unexpected, but still here.
But you're here.
Yeah.
So can you tell us a little bit about yourself and what you're doing in iGaming?
Yeah. I started doing SEO back in 2017 as an absolute junior in SEO. I had zero idea. I was working with the affiliate company back then, and I used to do all of the work that no one wanted to do in the company, which was usually a lot of manual work without any tools. And since then I've had quite a lot of experience doing SEO. I've done it most of the time in gambling, mostly casinos, some betting and poker, and a bit of bingo, but I've also done it for crypto, for Forex, for some other financial services, and also a bit of adult. If AI girlfriend topic counts as adult, which is kind of in the middle of it. I've done a lot of on-page content, technical. I've done it in case of iGaming, for operators, for affiliates, even for software providers, and I've done it for quite a few markets from Chile to Japan, depending on the project. And
So crypto, Forex, iGaming, these are very tough niches. What's special about them?
The special thing is, for me, SEO is, kind of a game. Like, you want to outperform, and if you outperform, you're getting paid. And let's say for the same time, you can invest in some highly competitive niches, let's say like iGaming. The same time invested somewhere else is probably just not worth as much. So that's why in the end, like, the companies for which I started my career as SEO locally, they were really into iGaming and a bit of Forex and crypto, just because they were highly competitive niches, but the rewards there were quite outsized compared to some other niches where the same company could have made it, but they just know that the mathematics and the financial side is one where it makes sense to risk a bit more in those industries because you get paid a lot more.
But you also need skills to get into those, right? How do you acquire them?
I would say lots of projects. Like, I've had the luck of working for few people who were like world class SEOs, I would say. I had some managers at iGaming.com which were like insane. Some people at Performalis, an agency where I also used to work at. People from who you learn a lot. But in the end, I would say that, comparing me and some people which we started there, let's say approximately the same time, the people who made it a bit further were ones which were just more curious, more oriented towards testing, towards learning. It was something which they would do not only in their work time, but also after. They would have the interest, they would want to push further and further. And lots of things you couldn't really, you can read them, but to fundamentally understand them and start to challenging the whole SEO game and the project, you have to be curious and you have to test it and do it yourself.
So let's talk more about iGaming. What markets do we have in iGaming? Typically, you divide into regulated and unregulated. Is this a good way to differentiate?
It depends on the geo and the market.
Yeah.
Yes. I would say back in the day, it didn't make as much difference because from the SEO point of view, and the maybe local regulations point of view, people are just trying to rank for, certain keywords which are high value, and then send that traffic to their partners who could be at the same time regulated or, let's say, semi-regulated. Let's say like the cases of having a license from Malta used to be in Europe, or people like completely, if regulated at all, licensed in some, kind of fish regulations like, let's say, Curacao, Kanawaki, and so on. And back in the day, I think affiliates the affiliates could run away with all of that. Now it's more split, I would say. And the reason for that is because lots of countries have basically a regulation, or if they don't have a regulation, which means that, gambling is not, legal and licensed, it means that everything is kind of illegal and they try to shut it down. So for example, right now in the UK, if you're doing anything SEO for iGaming in the UK, you kind of have to choose, are you doing it, legally with all of the operators, because all of the operators are going to get fined if they are listed on a website which is promoting offshore legal brands. So you have to choose, are you going to work with them or are you going to work with offshore brands? If you're working with offshore brands, in this case, what are your odds of being, punished by the local regulator in the UK? Because if you go into some specific, keywords, you can get, you can basically get hit because the UK agency is going to, send a DMCA and try to basically tell Google that you're trying to rank for some things you shouldn't.
Okay.
And they're going to really want to get your website or at least some of your pages down.
And sometimes we also divide into geographical areas. Can you talk a little bit about different markets depending on geography?
Yeah, well, from my point of view, when it comes to the geography, there's like two things. First of all, most of the people who do SEO for gambling would be, okay, in which geos can we get the most, bang for our buck?
Yes.
Where we're going to generate most revenue and profit, which is going to, let's say, lead them to the higher player value markets, and also the ones which are slightly bigger. Historically, Scandinavia, probably the markets which are most competitive compared to their size are probably Scandinavia, I would say. But also usually the big countries like, let's say, the US, UK, Germany have been also, quite tough to break into because they have long established competition there. Because everyone wants to be there, because huge countries with lots of disposable income, lots of gamblers and degenerates, which are like the biggest whales who just want to, play anywhere. So that's the first thing. And the second thing is, I think, the understanding of a language from the point of view of the SEOs, as well as Google's understanding of the language. So let's say if you're a person who is European, you're doing SEO, you find it probably easiest to do it, let's say, in English because everyone speaks English, or then do it, let's say, in the Western European languages like Spanish, French, German, because at least you can read, you can read the words and everything. You understand what's happening. I don't speak Swedish and German and French and Spanish, but like when I, try to do some on page and I try to understand what's happening, it's easy to do it. And then there's, for example, the Southeast Asian languages with all of the hieroglyphs, or I think, was it Georgian, the language with the small people in the letters, which were it was like, that's impossible to understand what's happening. And it's not only for, people like me, it's also for Google is a lot harder to understand the language. So let's say if they have understanding of English, which is like the best by far, let's say they have understanding for English for like level 2025, maybe for, Japanese, Korean, Georgian, it's like 2020 or let's say earlier, just because the language is different. So the SEO game also tends to be different.
Okay.
And for example, if some things are working or like are not working anymore in, let's say, the Western Europe or like the more advanced markets, maybe they're still working in some of those languages because, again, Google might, for example, have put a bigger emphasis on links because, with links, they understand a lot better what is a website relevant for, whereas for English and German and French, they don't need the links to understand because they just purely see the page and understand. So yeah.
So you can take advantage if you know these local languages. You can take advantage of that, right? If you come
Yes.
from that.
I mean, yeah. I mean, if you have the same approach, I mean, if you have the absolutely same approach and same execution for like 50 countries, I mean, you'd get vastly different, results. Because what is working, let's say, or what used to work in Germany and the UK and Western Europe might have never been an option anyway in Southeast Asia, for example. Or let's say from the point of view, even if you have the best content in the world and everything, I mean, your execution for, English would never work in Japan just because the way they understand the internet and they interact with the websites and the way the website look like, I mean, it's completely different to what, we are used to on a daily basis.
Okay.
So, for example, they have lots of things which are flashing, lots of, they have lots of things going on their pages, which, for me personally, it's like kind of overwhelming, but for them, that's the most natural thing ever. And if they see some simple website, with just a main part of the page, a sidebar, and the normal, header menu, which is not flashing or doing anything, they're going to be like, kind of, okay, what is this?
Suspicious.
We don't really trust it. So it's, yeah, you have to take into account some of the local differences.
Okay, so the cultural differences actually very much influence the trust.
Yeah. I mean, let's say the same content and context, the same content shown in different contexts can lead to very different results. So in one case, it can lead to a conversion or like high level of conversions. And in the other case, like people might be, okay, what is exactly this? I don't really trust it. So that's why, for example, some of the an approach which is working really nice in terms of generating traffic can be Parasite SEO, but sometimes it just feels off. Having that kind of content on that kind of website in that way, it just feels off, and conversions from that kind of websites can suffer, even though it can rank very fast.
So what are the markets with the biggest potential?
I mean, I would say you either go for the biggest markets and you find a niche where you can excel. Because, I mean, iGaming, crypto, financial services, though, I think in time those niches are going to grow in terms of searches and overall total addressable market, which can be caught by SEO. So you either go for the big things and you try to find your place under the sun and rank there, or you have to go somewhere early. Let's say a geo, which is just about to, explode maybe in activity, because there are some countries which are not popular that, their gambling is not as popular there, but they might have, decent incomes, decent, starting place. So if you're one of the first affiliates, for example, and you establish yourself as one of the leaders, and then the market starts growing and you're in a good position, you can grow quite fast. I think some of the markets countries which have, they're rather in the beginning of their overall understanding about gambling. Places which are in the beginning are Southeast Asia, Latin America as well. Whereas if you compare, let's say, UK and Australia, these are probably the markets with the one of the biggest and most established marketing societies for gambling. Okay, gambling is not legal in Australia, but land-based ones, they've had pokies, like the slot machines, they've had them for ages, and they have the biggest, the biggest number of slot machine per people on a square mile, something like that in the world. And they're one of the biggest gamblers worldwide in terms of per capita spend. And UK is just like so advanced in terms of regulations, marketing, and everything that, it's probably going to grow as well, but not as fast. Whereas markets where people actually, they don't really understand, for example, betting and slots and casino games, they actually remember some brand name because they saw it on some advertising and they tend to search it in that way. They also tend not to have the advanced ways that, let's say, Western Europeans search, because let's say if a society has been in gambling for gambling online for like 20 years, they more or less establish some pattern of searches which over time goes deeper and deeper. Whereas if you're a society which just get largely introduced to that one, you start by making the basic searches like online casino or a brand name 1 or brand name 2, but you don't really go for the highest payout slots from pragmatic play in whatever geo, something like that. It takes time for part of the society to get so advanced and to start being able to come up with those searches. And whether they are served is a different thing, because Google needs to collect some data and start distinguishing, pages for those searches. And for some of those niche languages we discussed, it's going to take a lot of time.
Okay. So you said markets such as Southeast Asia, Latin America, probably Africa.
Yeah, well, the thing with Africa is that they're very betting focused. So sports betting, they are really into it.
Okay.
Maybe let's say some crash games can take off, but in general, they are not, and I don't expect them to be, like a big casino nations.
Okay.
Because they are fanatics when it comes to sports.
Okay.
By far.
Yeah.
But again,
Interesting take. So actually, in the regulated markets, the margins are getting tighter and tighter with tax increases and the big competition. How do you deal with that?
Try to get as big as you can. Be it as an affiliate or an operator, you just try to get as much, percentage of the market as possible, and to try to have the biggest revenue, and to try to thin out your, expenses to make you as much as profitable as possible. But for the, small players, over time, it becomes evident that, from my point of view, I'm an SEO. I'm not, like a casino manager, like an owner of anything like that. But like my point of view is that you either become one of the big guys locally in those jurisdictions, because staying small means that you're either, a bit profitable, or, break even, or maybe at a slight or some loss, just because you cannot make the volume to cover your expenses, which are big, for licenses, for lawyers, for customer support, for everything which you can imagine. Whereas only the big guys can over time sustain that. And if you're one of the small guys, you either, can give it a go to become a big one, or you might reconsider just going somewhere abroad, offshore, or something else. But yeah, for affiliates, it's easier, of course. For operators, it's not. But again, regulated geos, I think that it's harder and harder to, if you're a small player, to compete long term.
And in regulated markets, also SERPs change fast. So typically, you have long-term strategies, but short-term tactics. Can you speak a little bit to that? What are those?
Well, if you're a regulated brand in those jurisdictions, operators don't have that many things they can do with when it comes to SEO. They want to, first of all, protect their brand, not to get it abused. So they're going to be basically fixing some of their pages to try to rank for some slot games or some sports betting markets. And they're just going to do that kind of forever, because they're going to play the long game. Because if you have a license, it's not to compete somewhere for 1 year. No, it's kind of like long-term engagement. And in the short term, the only thing where operators can probably excel in terms of generating traffic is just running some marketing campaigns and doing a bit of influencers and trying to, in this, in Bulgaria, lots of brands were advertising their services on the TVs and on with lots of campaigns and lots of promos, and they would tend to have insane searches going towards their main websites, because people would start associating, let's say, online casino with FBet, with WinBet, with whatever. And with all of that advertising, people would stop searching for the generic term, because they were going to be like, okay, I remember those brands because they're advertising everywhere, and they make that association and search for it. In the case of the affiliates, in general, they're more flexible because they can choose which geo, what language, which niche they're targeting. But still, the long-term game for SEO, I don't think has changed that much. It's like, okay, you have to build the content that you need to rank. You have to do the right on-page, the right links, not be ultra aggressive, because you might be risking everything just on a short-term link building, extremely aggressive link building tactic. So you're doing the right things long term, and you hope that over time you're going to outcompete, because lots of those markets also get crowded and are currently crowded because there's some huge companies or like very authoritative websites with which it's very hard to compete, especially if you're starting out and you want to compete for the mid or high search volume, high player value search terms. It's like I mean, I've advised a lot of people not to go into it because it's like, it's going to be extremely hard, and you have to look at the long term. In the short term, you can be, doing some shenanigans with, let's say, redirects, with click manipulations, with some links, with whatever. But the established markets, it's very hard for that to work. The only option where it kind of works is either you're doing parasites. So, I mean, you really go and you find an insane domain. Like, Outlook India used to do that some months ago. But you also had pages on some of the, really the best websites out there, which were just ranking from, you're posting it today and it's ranking tomorrow and it's sticking there for some weeks. In the UK, it's still working. Like the Daily Telegraph is still having a huge section about online business. Not sure if they do it with a partnership or they do it on their own, but it's still working. Or the second option when it comes to the affiliates, if it's not, parasites, again, you might want to go into some of the, if you're working on a regulated market, you can go to an unregulated type of keywords, which I believe can work in the short term very well if you rank there, because it tends to be less competition from the traditional players. Because if you're a big affiliate player in some geo, that geo is regulated, you don't want to risk everything on trying to rank for, let's say in the UK, that's the non-GameStop type of keywords, where basically, an affiliate tries to generate traffic from casino players who are banned by the local self-exclusion platform in the UK. This is usually something which, smaller affiliates are trying to, not smaller, but more risk-taking affiliates are ready to. And that's not something that the big guys who are there for the long term are going to do, because even if they rank for 1 week, there's legit reasons for the local government to go against those websites, be it legally, be it with ISP block, be it with something else, or DMCA. So that's something that can work. But if someone wants to do it, they have to be ready for the downsides and probably not do it with their main websites, because maybe it's not worth it to get the whole domain, blocked locally for, some highly searched for and highly valuable keyword, but for a rather short period of time, because the unlicensed type of keywords in Scandinavia, in the UK, they're volatile for a reason, and it's because very few people want to go for it from the traditional players, and it tends to be closely watched by the government.
So can you give examples of these like non-traditional keywords?
Like in the UK, that's like the non-GameStop casinos, betting sites, or whatever type of results. Most of the time you would see there expired domains which were just, from what they used to be. Now they're kind of a casino affiliate promoting completely illegal operators and their bonuses and everything. They would be, well optimized. They would have a lot of redirects, a lot of PBNs, lots of CTR manipulation, lots of everything, just because, you wouldn't see the traditional big players there. You wouldn't see casino.org, the gambling coms, the big websites from Katina, from Better Collective. You wouldn't see any of them because, if they are found to be doing something, they're going to have a huge backlash in the media, and especially for the public company, that's a no-go. But the smaller private ones, they can do, those types of tricks. In Scandinavia, it's like the without license online casinos type of keywords. In Germany, it was connected to slots which have fast spins, because the local regulation in Germany means that all of the slot games should have a spin which is, was it 3, 4, or 5 seconds in between the spins, which makes the game a lot slower for the players, a lot less engaging, and they're searching for faster slots, or they're searching for higher RTP slots, because of the local regulations pushes lots of tax to the local operators, and they have to lower RTPs. So in the end, the experience of those players becomes so bad compared to what it used to be, that they kind of construct the reverse keyword. They search on Google, they find the offshore guys, and then, they start playing offshore, where they get the product they really want to. And lots of affiliates who are targeting those offshore players are doing great, but it's not the old, established affiliates, because risking everything on that kind of keywords for them would be too risky.
Okay. Yes. So the players are searching for the experience they want, and that can be very different depending on each country.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, you can imagine that you're used to using a service, and I mean, whatever it is, and you use it on a daily, weekly, monthly basis, whatever, and you're used to it. And then from next month, you start paying either the same and getting like 20-30% lower value for it, or it stays the same price. Or for the same quality, you're starting to pay more. And the issue, I mean, I'm not against legalization. No, I'm actually for it. But the issue with it is that most of the time it's a political decision in lots of jurisdictions. And when it's not made with the right understanding, it's pushing players a lot more towards the black market.
Yes.
Rather than actually taking them inside. So if the user can basically experience the fast spin casinos, the slow spin casinos in Germany, where you don't even have table games. If you have a bonus, it's like very small. And to be honest, like the websites themselves are not as great and engaging with poor community. And you compare that to some of the newer generation crypto casinos where you can deposit and take out your money faster. Okay, it's in crypto, but still you can do it. You have all of the games you want. You have a very good RTPs. Your bonuses can be insane. I mean, and the community there is really alive, and it's okay on some of the brands, and it's quite big. I mean, you can understand why if you're a normal user and you've decided you're going to spend, let's say, $100 on gambling tonight. I mean, you can do it with one brand for, let's say, half an hour, and it's not going to be as engaging. Or you can do it with another for 1 hour and have more fun.
Yes.
Yeah, I mean, okay, one operator is going to be offshore, so it's not going to pay its taxes and fair share locally. But still, from the user point of view, it makes sense to just try to prolong your activity longer and just have more fun for the same amount of money.
Sure. So how do you actually do link building in regulated markets?
Most of the link building everywhere is kind of the same. From my point of view, most people are doing, the usual guest posts. They go for some banners here and there. Some are going for PBNs, which, I mean, depending on your execution and risk tolerance, can be fine. I mean, like everything, if you over abuse it and if you're way too aggressive, you're probably going to get hit. Although in some smaller, less understood languages, I mean, Google doesn't really check if, all of your links have a guest post tag or, a sponsored category or something. So most of the link building is like that. In regulated markets, I think the big advantage is that if the regulations is a bit more strict, that can basically be advantage of the local guys, not the offshore ones, because for example, in Italy, and I think in Spain, they had this, or maybe it was just Italy, they had this where if they're going to link to someone, most of the time they're going to ask, okay, but is this brand licensed? Or like this affiliate promoting only licensed brands? Because if it's not, they would have potentially consequences from the local government, and they would not link to it. But if it's, if it's legal and it's licensed, they're going to be okay to link to it. But overall, I think most of the approaches are, again, largely the same, regardless of whether it's regulated or not.
Okay.
In the end, lots of people and lots of webmasters and owners of websites, they just want to make money. And, people who want to buy links from them, it's a big business. Like, I mean, I don't have to explain that to people from Odys, but in general, I think trying to get authority for search engines, and by that I mean, you either want to buy links or you want to buy expired domain, you want to buy age domain. I mean, that kind of, if you summarize it like authority for SEO purposes, it's probably like $1 billion or more industry a year, because it's not only gambling and crypto. I mean, it's like lots of niches are engaged in some form of link building or PR or, building websites on expired domains. So it's like you want to use that authority in some ways to gain some financial, gain from search engines and the traffic you get from them.
Yeah, I mean, in tough markets like that, you kind of have to use it. I mean, if you start from scratch with a website, like that will take you so much time.
True. The question is, again, what kind of depends on the market, first of all. So if you're going, let's say, to the UK, even if you have on paper very authoritative domain, like let's say GR40, 45, with some, good backlink profile, I mean, that doesn't mean it's going to, compete with, I mean, the Daily Telegraph is in, I think, top 5 for the casino terms in the UK. You have go.com, which was there. You have also the big affiliates and the big operators. And I mean, people who are in business for like 5, 10, sometimes even more years, and they have some insane authority, insane relevancy. So even buying a GR45 domain with a good history and great links, it's not in any way guarantee you're going to make your money back and develop a great website. No, probably it's not going to happen. But testing that in some other geos with, no connection between the old language of the domain you're taking, it can still work, and probably it would work better compared to just getting a good domain and trying it in some of the most advanced markets, unless you go for something which is very niche and specific, and you really understand that your domain in the way you want to prepare it and try to compete with it is created in a way which has chance and odds of working fine. Because it's not just, trusting some random metric on Ahrefs or SEMrush and telling you, so this domain is having that metric and all of the others are having that metric, so we should outcompete them. Yeah, if it was so simple, it would have been a different game.
In unregulated markets, Blackhat techniques are like the daily bread. What is the tactic that you've seen dominate that area that is actually too risky for the regulated markets?
So it depends when you say risk, who kind of takes the risk, because let's say few of the things which are working the best, like probably the first one is just using a repurposed domain or a parasite domain. So basically, like if you're using parasites, they tend to work very well. And if something happens to the website though, I mean, it's not like you own it. So maybe the responsibility is taken by, and like the decline in traffic or maybe even penalty is taken by the webmaster.
You lose control.
I mean, which, to be honest, like he or she should be aware of that one if they're willing to sell that kind of sponsored posts en masse. And in the last, months to 1 year, there's been plenty of instances of having, specific websites hit because they're doing parasite SEO. Repurposed domains also are, very good tactic. We had some, very prominent examples, especially in iGaming, which used to work insanely well. Like people buying 15, 20, 25-year-old domains which were well developed into some niches, like let's say technology or business or something, and basically over time switching them towards casino affiliate, betting affiliate, crypto affiliate, or sometimes even other random affiliate stuff. The best example of that is probably Forbes, which, before they got their last penalty, they've lifted it now. I haven't looked into it. But, they used to try to dominate in English in the States SERPs in so many niches. Like, I remember I was having a discussion with someone who's more senior with SEO about a domain which we could potentially, repurpose. So it was a domain about some generic news in the States, and we're discussing, okay, how can we, should we add a section about online casinos and gambling and everything? And I remember I was giving, the person I was discussing that was not open to that idea really, and I was just giving him examples. Okay, but Forbes are kind of doing it, and they're doing it quite successfully. And they didn't do it for gambling, but they had some insane niches. They had like lots of sex toy stuff. So like the connection between the main domain and the niche they ranked for was not there at all. But just Google recognized the authority and was ranking them for those keywords and topics. So we had that discussion. I would say both sides were correct, because I think you should be abusing Google in any way you can. But you should make it in a way where hopefully you don't get a huge investment if you're buying a domain to repurpose it hit by a penalty. I was, I think, right, because like I think the only way to make that investment in that case profitable was to really try to push. If it's maybe gambling, crypto, some niche which can generate significant affiliate commissions. But the other person was also right because some months later Forbes was hit by a penalty. So yeah, probably we should have maybe made something in between, just to not have the penalty, but still try to push some revenue to this project.
Yeah.
So yeah, the two main things which are working would be parasites, repurposed domains, and other things which can work depending on the geo can be, expired domains, but those would tend to work best, in my opinion, with markets which are having ISP blocks. So like the local internet providers, because of some government decision, are blocking specific types of websites from showing on Google locally. And it means that, eventually no one locally can visit that website without a VPN. So only because of the user signals, the domains eventually dropping from the SERPs. And the SERPs are very volatile because it tends to be niches where, let's say, gambling, where in some, for example, Southeast Asian countries like Vietnam, I think was one of them, Malaysia, Indonesia, Singapore, Turkey is also a famous example. You just have ISP blocks, let's say, from every other week, from happening every week up until, let's say, some weeks. So the SERP is changing all the time because people are basically using expired domains, lots of redirects, lots of PBNs, lots of whatever they can just to try to move their performance from one property to the other, to the next one. And they're doing it in the process where they're always waiting for something to happen because they know that this domain and its history is kind of irrelevant because we're trying to rank for it, let's say, for some days or even weeks, and then transfer it to someone else and kind of do that for perpetuity, unless the market by some miracle regulates and they can do it in a normal way. But yeah, they can go away with that one because there are other competition, like the huge websites globally. They're not into it because they cannot break in. And if they do, they get ISP blocked, so it's like they're not competition forever.
How important is tech SEO for iGaming? What are the must fixes that you typically see?
It depends on the perspective and the type of the company. So I think technical SEO is by far the hardest for the operators because they tend to, they all have, their websites are basically platforms with lots of games, lots of redirects, lots of APIs and integrations and JavaScript, and it's just a platform. And quite a few of them are white label platforms. And when they were created, let's say that SEO hasn't been historically a thing which the developers and those white labels used to think is hypered. So you would see very often that there's quite some issues with the operator website. So for example, crawling, rendering, indexing, or parts of that chain isn't really working great either for the whole websites or part of it. So you can, in theory, have a whole section of your website completely invisible to search engines. And so for Google searches, despite the fact that you might have a good content, or in theory, it could rank decently well for those keywords. Of course, over time, I've seen that lots of operators have started switching and pushing and improving their technical SEO to make their website more search engine friendly. And the big operators, the ones who usually dominate some markets in geo, they tend to, I believe, gather quite a few of eyeballs in the local searches because if you have lots of game-related pages or categories indexed and you can rank them in the top 10, it's a great boost, I think, for their branding and for their performance overall. The operators definitely have it the hardest. For the affiliates, again, if you compare most of the time text content heavy affiliate, yes, text content heavy affiliates we have tables, we have embeds, we have whatever. But comparing that one to a white label platform for Cosmos, it's like a lot easier. So there's fewer things that can go very bad for affiliates, and they tend to be ones which are anyway under control. So yeah, the basics there are again the most important ones. The let's say site speed, mobile friendliness. I've seen some affiliate websites which in 2024, 2025, they're still using their old themes or designed for before the 2020. So it's not optimal, so to say. Let's say they can get away from it because maybe some of them have a brand, they have a direct traffic, they have a following which is using them anyway, which is helping them. But they can definitely improve on that one. And the absolute basic is, of course, allowing Googlebot to visit your website, see the page, index it,